The sun-drenched horizon of Sweetwater Creek, Arizona, held no promise for Abigail Foster as she stepped off the dusty stagecoach in the summer of 1875, her gloved hands trembling despite the scorching heat. At 23, she'd seen enough of men's false promises to last several lifetimes, and this remote frontier town was to be her sanctuary, not another place for heartbreak. "Miss Foster?" A round-faced woman with kind eyes approached. "I'm Mrs. Hawkins. Welcome to Sweetwater Creek. I trust your journey wasn't too tiresome?" Abigail managed a polite smile, adjusting her simple blue traveling dress. "Thank you for your concern, Mrs. Hawkins. I'm quite well, just eager to settle in." "Of course, dear. The schoolhouse is prepared, though I must say it needs a woman's touch." Mrs. Hawkins guided Abigail down the main street, past the saloon where raucous laughter spilled into the afternoon air. "We're blessed to have a proper teacher arrive. The children need education if they're to make something of themselves out here." Abigail nodded, her gaze drawn to a tall figure emerging from the general store. Broad-shouldered and moving with the easy confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin, he tipped his hat to an elderly couple before loading supplies onto a wagon. "That's Adam Blackwood," Mrs. Hawkins volunteered, following Abigail's line of sight. "Owns the largest cattle ranch outside town. Decent sort, keeps to himself mostly." Something in the woman's tone suggested more, but Abigail had no interest in local gossip about eligible men. She'd come to Sweetwater Creek to teach, to heal, and most importantly, to protect herself from ever making the same mistakes again. "The schoolhouse is just ahead," Mrs. Hawkins continued. "You'll be staying in the attached quarters. Small, but private." As they approached the weathered building, Abigail caught the rancher Adam looking in her direction. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the dusty street. He nodded once, expression unreadable beneath the shadow of his hat brim, before returning to his task. Abigail quickly averted her gaze. Men like him, handsome, capable, commanding, were exactly the type she'd promised herself to avoid. The schoolhouse was indeed small, with simple wooden benches arranged in rows facing a blackboard. The attached living quarters consisted of a modest bedroom, a sitting area with a small stove, and basic furnishings. "It's perfect," Abigail said, meaning it. After Boston's suffocating society and the humiliation she'd endured there, this sparse simplicity felt like freedom. "School begins Monday," Mrs. Hawkins informed her. 23 children, ages 5 to 15. Some ride in from outlying farms and ranches. "I'll be prepared," Abigail assured her. After Mrs. Hawkins departed, Abigail sank onto the narrow bed, finally allowing her carefully maintained composure to slip. She traveled over 2,000 miles to escape Frederick Hammond's betrayal and her family's pitying glances. Here, no one knew how she'd foolishly believed a man's promises, only to discover his engagement to another woman, a wealthy heiress whose family connections would advance his political ambitions far better than a schoolteacher's daughter could. The memory still burned, but Abigail straightened her shoulders. Sweetwater Creek represented her fresh start, and she wouldn't waste it dwelling on past hurts. She unpacked her few belongings, arranging books on the small shelf and placing her mother's silver hairbrush on the dresser. By Sunday evening, she'd prepared her lessons and walked through town to familiarize herself with her new home. Sweetwater Creek consisted of one main street with wooden buildings on either side: the general store, saloon, small hotel, sheriff's office, and a few other establishments. Beyond the town limits stretched the vast, untamed landscape of the Arizona Territory, beautiful in its wild desolation. Monday morning arrived bright and clear. Abigail dressed in her best teaching attire, a high-necked gray dress with minimal embellishments, and pinned her dark honey-colored hair into a neat bun. As the children began arriving, she greeted each one with a warm smile and firm handshake. "Good morning. I'm Miss Foster, your new teacher." The children eyed her with varying degrees of curiosity and wariness. Most were dressed simply, some in clothes that had clearly been mended multiple times, but all appeared clean and reasonably tidy. A tall boy of about 15 hung back, watching her through narrowed eyes. When she approached him, he maintained a defensive posture. "And your name?" she asked. "James Blackwood," he replied, chin jutting forward slightly. "My pa says school's important, but I'd rather be working the ranch." Blackwood. The name registered immediately. "Well, James, education and ranching aren't mutually exclusive. Perhaps you'll find something of value here." The boy shrugged noncommittally but took a seat. By midday, Abigail had assessed her students' varying educational levels and begun organizing appropriate lessons. Most were eager to learn, though a few boys clearly shared James's preference for outdoor work over academics. As the children departed at day's end, Abigail noticed a wagon approaching. Adam Blackwood sat at the reins, his face partially shaded by his hat. He brought the horses to a stop and waited as James climbed aboard. Abigail stood in the schoolhouse doorway, determined to establish a proper relationship with the parents of her students. She nodded politely as James settled beside his father. Adam touched the brim of his hat. "Miss Foster. Trust my boy behaved himself. James participated well enough for a first day," she replied diplomatically. Something like amusement flickered across the rancher's weather-tanned features. "That's generous of you. Jim's more comfortable with cattle than books. Different environments require different skills, Mr. Blackwood. I hope to show him that knowledge can be valuable in any circumstance." Adam studied her for a moment, his eyes a striking shade of blue-gray assessing. Admirable goal. He clicked to the horses. "Good day, Miss Foster." Abigail watched the wagon depart, annoyed to find her heart beating slightly faster than normal. Adam Blackwood was exactly the sort of man she needed to avoid: too handsome, too confident, too capable of making a woman forget her carefully constructed defenses. The next few weeks established a rhythm to Abigail's new life. She taught during the day, prepared lessons in the evenings, and gradually came to know the community. Parents invited her to Sunday dinners, and she attended church services where Reverend Miller preached with passionate conviction about divine guidance on the frontier. She saw Adam Blackwood occasionally collecting James after school, at church, or in town at the general store. They exchanged polite greetings but little more. Abigail told herself the flutter in her stomach whenever he appeared was merely lingering anxiety from her past experience, nothing more. One Friday afternoon in late September, storm clouds gathered ominously as school ended. The air felt heavy with impending rain as the last children departed, leaving only James, who stood on the porch looking concerned. "Pa usually comes by now," he said, scanning the horizon. "Perhaps he was delayed," Abigail suggested, though unease prickled along her spine. The approaching storm looked fierce. "We should wait inside." They had just retreated to the schoolroom when the first fat drops began to fall, quickly intensifying to a pounding deluge. Wind howled around the building's corners as lightning split the sky, followed by crashing thunder. "Will your father know to seek shelter?" Abigail asked as the storm's fury increased. James nodded. "Pa knows this country better than anybody. If he's not here, it's because something's happened." The words hung ominously in the air until, nearly an hour later, the door burst open. Adam Blackwood stood framed in the doorway, drenched and grim-faced. "Pa!" James exclaimed, relief evident in his voice. "Bridge washed out," Adam said tersely, water dripping from his hat and coat. "Need to move. River's rising fast and this building's too close to the creek." Abigail gathered her shawl. "Where should we go?" "Hotels on higher ground." His eyes met hers. "Sorry to inconvenience you, Miss Foster." "Safety isn't an inconvenience, Mr. Blackwood," she replied, reaching for her small leather satchel containing her most important possessions. Outside, the rain continued relentlessly. Adam helped them into his wagon, where a tarp provided minimal protection. As they navigated the increasingly flooded street, Abigail glimpsed other townspeople hurrying towards safer locations. At the hotel, they found several families already gathered. Mrs. Peterson, the proprietor's wife, bustled about distributing towels and hot coffee. "Terrible business," she tooted, handing Abigail a steaming cup. "Creek hasn't flooded like this in 5 years." Adam conferred with Sheriff Tate and several other men before approaching Abigail, who sat with James near the fireplace. "I need to help with the evacuation efforts," he said. "Jim, you stay here with Miss Foster." James protested. "I can help, Pa. You can help by staying put." Adam cut him off firmly. "Miss Foster, I apologize for imposing on you." "It's no imposition," she assured him. "We'll be fine here." As Adam turned to leave, Abigail impulsively caught his arm. The solid warmth of him beneath the wet fabric sent an unexpected jolt through her. "Please be careful, Mr. Blackwood." Something indefinable passed between them, a moment of connection that transcended their previous polite exchanges. Then he nodded once and was gone. The evening stretched into night as the storm continued its assault. Children slept on makeshift pallets while adults spoke in hushed voices about potential damage. James eventually dozed off in a chair, leaving Abigail alone with her thoughts and growing concern for those still working in the storm, particularly a certain rancher with storm-colored eyes. Near midnight the hotel door opened, admitting several exhausted men, including Adam. His clothes were plastered to his powerful frame, his face etched with fatigue. "Everyone's accounted for," Sheriff Tate announced. "But we've lost the livery stable and Miller's place got hit by lightning." Abigail brought Adam coffee, noting the cut on his forehead. "You're injured." He accepted the cup, his fingers brushing hers. "It's nothing. Sit down and let me look at it," she insisted, surprising herself with her forwardness. Perhaps too tired to argue, Adam sank into a chair. Abigail dampened a clean handkerchief and gently cleaned the wound. Standing this close, she noticed details she'd previously missed: the tiny lines at the corners of his eyes, a small scar near his jaw, the clean scent of him beneath the rain and exertion. "How did this happen?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite their proximity. "Helping the Millers salvage what they could. Beam came down. You're fortunate it wasn't worse." His eyes held hers. "I'm accustomed to hard knocks, Miss Foster." "As are we all, Mr. Blackwood," she replied softly, stepping back. "Though some are more difficult to recover from than others." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken questions. Then James stirred, breaking the tension. "Pa? Everything okay?" Adam shifted his attention to his son. "Everything's fine, Jim. Get some more sleep." By morning, the rain had stopped, though the creek remained swollen and angry. The damage was substantial but not catastrophic. Sweetwater Creek had weathered another challenge. The schoolhouse had suffered water damage, necessitating repairs before classes could resume. Abigail's living quarters, thankfully on slightly higher ground, remained mostly dry, though a persistent dampness lingered. 2 days later, as she attempted to salvage waterlogged books, a knock at the door revealed Adam Blackwood and several other men with tools and lumber. "Thought you might use some help," Adam said simply. For the next week, they worked to restore the schoolhouse. Abigail found herself frequently in Adam's company, observing his patient instruction to younger men, his careful attention to detail, and his quiet competence. Gradually, she discovered he was a widower who'd raised James alone for the past 10 years after his wife died in childbirth with their second child. "Must have been difficult," she commented one afternoon as they shelved rescued books. "Life out here is never easy," he replied, his voice matter-of-fact rather than self-pitying. "You adapt or you perish. Is that why you stayed? When many would have returned east after such a loss." Adam considered this. "This land gets in your blood. Becomes part of you." He glanced at her. "What brought you west, Miss Foster? If you don't mind my asking." Abigail tensed, the familiar pains surfacing. "A desire for change. Most people don't travel 2,000 miles for a simple change," he observed quietly. "Perhaps I'm not most people, Mr. Blackwood." His eyes held hers. "No, I don't believe you are." The moment lingered until Mrs. Hawkins arrived with a basket of food, breaking the spell. As October progressed, Abigail found herself increasingly aware of Adam's presence in her life. He often appeared with small, thoughtful gestures: fresh apples from his orchard, a repaired chair for her quarters, a new set of chalk when supplies ran low. Each interaction revealed another layer of the man beneath the stoic exterior. One Saturday, she encountered him at the general store, where he was purchasing supplies. "Miss Foster," he greeted her, tipping his hat. "How are this week's lessons progressing?" "Well enough. Your son showed remarkable aptitude for mathematics yesterday." Pride flickered across Adam's face. "Jim's got a good head for figures when he applies himself." As they walked outside together, Adam hesitated. "Miss Foster, Abigail, I wonder if you might join Jim and me for dinner tomorrow after church? Nothing formal, just a simple meal at the ranch." The invitation caught her off guard. Part of her, the cautious, wounded part, urged refusal. Yet another part, growing stronger daily, was drawn to this straightforward man who asked for nothing but offered much. "I would be pleased to accept, Mr. Blackwood." "Adam," he corrected gently. "After rebuilding half a schoolhouse together, I think we've earned first-name terms." The Blackwood Ranch lay 5 miles outside town, a substantial property with a well-maintained main house, bunkhouse, barn, and corrals. The house itself, built of solid timber with a wide porch, spoke of permanence and care. Inside, Abigail discovered comfortable, if simple, furnishings. A bookshelf held a surprising variety of volumes, and landscape paintings brightened whitewashed walls. The whole space reflected its owner, unpretentious yet substantial. Dinner proved delicious: roast beef, potatoes, fresh bread, and apple pie prepared by Mrs. Martinez, who cooked for the ranch hands and kept house for Adam and James. Conversation flowed easily, with James animatedly describing ranch activities and Adam occasionally adding quiet observations. Abigail found herself relaxing, laughing more freely than she had in months. After dinner, James excused himself to check on a new foal, leaving Abigail and Adam alone on the porch as twilight deepened into dusk. The vast landscape stretched before them, painted in purple and gold by the setting sun. "It's beautiful," Abigail murmured. "Yes," Adam agreed, though when she glanced over, he was looking at her, not the sunset. Heat rose to her cheeks as she turned back to the view. "Your home is lovely. You've built something remarkable here. It was rough going at first. This territory doesn't yield easily to human ambition. Yet you persevered. Had no choice. Jim needed stability." He paused. "What about you, Abigail? What are you running from?" The direct question startled her. "What makes you think I'm running?" "Recognition, perhaps. I did my share after Sarah died." His voice held no judgment, only understanding. The gentleness in his tone loosened something inside her. "I made a mistake," she admitted, the words difficult after months of silence. "I believed in promises that proved false." "A man?" She nodded, staring into the gathering darkness. "Frederick Hammond. He was charming, articulate, from a good Boston family. He spoke of marriage, a future together. I believed him completely." The familiar humiliation washed over her. "Then I discovered he was engaged to Catherine Winthrop, daughter of a state senator, perfect for his political aspirations." "He sounds like a fool," Adam said quietly. Abigail laughed without humor. "Quite the opposite. He made a calculated decision. Catherine brought connections, wealth, social standing, everything an ambitious man could want. And yet he lost you." Adam's voice held a certainty that made her turn to look at him. "Seems like poor calculation to me." Something in his steady gaze made her heart quicken. "I was naive," she said softly. "I won't make that mistake again." "Trusting isn't a mistake, Abigail. Trusting the wrong person is." "And how does one tell the difference?" He considered this. "Time reveals truth." Words come easy, consistent actions take effort. The wisdom in his simple statement resonated. They sat in companionable silence until James returned, and Adam drove her back to town in the wagon. At the schoolhouse door, he helped her down, his hands strong and warm at her waist. For a moment, they stood close enough that she could feel the solid warmth of him. "Thank you for today," she said, suddenly aware of how much she'd shared. "Thank you for coming." His eyes held hers. "Perhaps we could do it again sometime." The invitation hung between them, weighted with possibility. Abigail felt the familiar fear rise, the protective instinct to retreat, to shield her battered heart. But something stronger pushed back against that fear. "I would like that," she found herself saying. His smile, rare and transformative, warmed her all the way back inside. As autumn deepened, a tentative friendship grew between them. Adam appeared regularly at school functions, town meetings, and church services where they often found themselves seated together. They exchanged books and opinions, discovering shared interests despite their different backgrounds. Yet Abigail maintained careful boundaries. When conversations veered toward personal matters, she gently redirected. When his hand occasionally brushed hers, she withdrew. Each time, she saw the flash of understanding in his eyes, patience without pressure. In late November, as Thanksgiving approached, the town planned a community celebration. Abigail's students prepared a special performance, and excitement filled the schoolroom during rehearsals. One afternoon, as the children departed, Adam arrived earlier than usual for James. "Got a moment?" he asked. "Of course." She gestured to a chair while continuing to erase the blackboard. "Town council's discussing winter preparations. The pass to Phoenix sometimes closes with heavy snow, and supplies can run short. Should I be concerned? Not with proper planning. But I'd advise stocking additional provisions: flour, coffee, preserves. The general store gets picked clean when storms threaten." His thoughtfulness touched her. "Thank you for the warning." Adam hesitated, then added, "If you're not otherwise engaged for Thanksgiving, Jim and I would be honored to have you join us." The invitation warmed her, but caution reared its head. They'd been spending more time together, each encounter deepening her regard for him. That was precisely what worried her, how easily she could lose her heart if she wasn't vigilant. "That's very kind, but Mrs. Hawkins has already invited me," she replied, the lie smooth on her tongue. Disappointment flickered across his face before his expression settled into polite acceptance. "Another time, perhaps." That evening, Abigail paced her small quarters, unsettled by her own dishonesty. Adam Blackwood had shown her nothing but respect and kindness. He deserved better than fabricated excuses. The following morning, she approached him as he waited for James. "I owe you an apology," she said directly. "I wasn't truthful yesterday. Mrs. Hawkins hasn't invited me for Thanksgiving." His expression remained neutral. "I see. I declined because—" She faltered, then gathered her courage. "Because I'm afraid." "Of me?" His brow furrowed. "Of this." She gestured between them. "Of what might happen if I allow myself to care," he finished softly when she couldn't. She nodded, vulnerability making her voice unsteady. "I've been hurt before, Adam. Badly. I came here to rebuild my life, not to risk my heart again." He considered her words, his expression thoughtful rather than offended. "I understand caution, Abigail. But at some point caution becomes a prison of its own making. Perhaps that's safer than the alternative." "Is it?" His eyes held hers. "Is safety worth sacrificing everything else life offers?" Before she could respond, James appeared, ending their conversation. But Adam's question lingered, challenging her carefully constructed defenses. That night, unable to sleep, Abigail confronted uncomfortable truths. She had indeed built walls to protect herself, walls that were increasingly keeping out not just pain, but joy as well. Adam's steady presence had come to mean more to her than she'd been willing to admit, even to herself. The next day, she sent a note to the ranch. "I would be honored to join you for Thanksgiving, if the invitation still stands." His reply came the same afternoon. "Always." Thanksgiving at the Blackwood Ranch proved to be everything Abigail had both anticipated and feared: warm, welcoming, and dangerously easy to imagine as home. Adam had invited several ranch hands without family nearby, creating an atmosphere of genuine community. The food was plentiful, the conversation lively, and the laughter frequent. After dinner, as others gathered around the piano where one of the cowboys played, Adam invited Abigail outside. The night air held winter's first real bite, and he draped a warm blanket around her shoulders as they stood on the porch. "Thank you for coming today," he said quietly. "Thank you for asking." Again. She smiled up at him. "I'm glad I accepted this time." "So am I." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Abigail, I want you to know that I understand your hesitation. I've no intention of pushing where I'm not wanted." "It isn't that you're not wanted," she admitted, the darkness making honesty easier. "It's that I'm afraid of wanting too much." He turned to face her fully. "You said you've been hurt before? I won't pretend to know exactly what that felt like for you. But I do know what loss is. After Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over. That I'd just focus on raising Jim and building the ranch. What changed?" His eyes held hers steadily. "You arrived in Sweetwater Creek." The simple statement sent warmth cascading through her despite the chilly air. "Adam, I'm not asking for promises, Abigail. I'm just asking for a chance. A chance to show you that not all men break their word. That trust can be rewarded rather than betrayed." The moment stretched between them, taut with possibility. Finally, she found her voice. "I'm afraid," she whispered. "I've been hurt before." His hand, warm and callous, gently cupped her cheek. "Then let me be different." Something shifted inside her, a loosening of tightly wound fear, a tentative opening toward hope. She didn't move away when he slowly leaned closer, giving her every opportunity to retreat. And when his lips finally met hers, gentle and questioning, she found herself responding with a surprising hunger that had nothing to do with food and everything to do with a deeper, more elemental need. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I won't rush you," he promised softly. "We have time." The knowledge settled inside her like a precious gift, time to learn each other, to build trust slowly, to heal old wounds and create something new. Winter descended on Sweetwater Creek with a vengeance that year. Heavy snowfalls alternated with crystal clear, bone-chilling days. The pass to Phoenix closed 3 times, making Adam's advice about stocking provisions seem prescient. Despite the harsh weather, Abigail's heart warmed as her relationship with Adam gradually deepened. They established a patterned Sunday dinners at the ranch, occasional rides when weather permitted, quiet conversations by the schoolhouse fire. Each encounter revealed more layers to the man she was increasingly unable to imagine her life without. Adam proved to be exactly what he'd promised, different. Where Frederick had been all flash and eloquence, Adam was substance and steadiness. His actions consistently matched his words. His attentions remained respectful but unmistakably devoted. By Christmas, Abigail found the walls around her heart crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. When Adam presented her with a hand-carved jewelry box, its surface adorned with intricate wildflowers, she recognized the weeks of evening work it represented. "It's beautiful," she said, tracing the delicate petals. "Not as beautiful as who it's for," he replied simply. The town's Christmas celebration brought the community together despite the cold. Children performed carols, gifts were exchanged, and for the first time, Abigail allowed herself to dance publicly with Adam, no longer concerned about what others might think or say. As they moved together to the fiddle's melody, his hand warm at her waist, she realized she hadn't thought of Frederick Hammond in weeks. The pain that had driven her west had faded to a distant memory, replaced by something far more powerful and genuine. In January, a particularly vicious blizzard swept through the territory. School closed for a week as temperatures plummeted and snow piled in deep drifts. Abigail maintained a constant fire but still shivered beneath every blanket she owned. On the 3rd night, a pounding at her door revealed Adam, his hat and coat crusted with snow. "You shouldn't be out in this," she admonished, pulling him inside. Needed to check on you. His face was red with cold. Stove holding out? Yes, though I'm running low on firewood. Without hesitation, he moved to her woodpile, assessing what remained. This won't last the night. I'll bring more from my sled. Before she could protest, he disappeared back into the swirling white darkness, returning minutes later with an armload of split logs. 3 more trips ensured she had enough fuel to weather the storm. As he prepared to leave, Abigail caught his arm. Stay, she said impulsively. At least until the worst passes. The journey back would be foolhardy. He studied her face, clearly weighing propriety against practicality. People will talk. People always talk. I'd rather give them fodder for gossip than attend your funeral. The corner of his mouth lifted. When you put it that way. They spent the evening in surprisingly comfortable domesticity, sharing a simple meal, reading aloud from her collection of Dickens, talking about everything and nothing. When exhaustion finally caught up with them, Abigail insisted Adam take the bed while she settled in the chair near the stove. Don't be ridiculous, he objected. I'll take the floor. And undo all my good work keeping you from freezing to death? I think not. In the end, they compromised. Adam took the chair, Abigail the bed, both fully dressed and wrapped in separate blankets. But in the deepest part of the night, when the fire burned low and the cold intensified, she woke to find him adding wood to the stove, his movements careful and quiet to avoid disturbing her. Adam, she called softly. He turned, his expression apologetic. Didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. She hesitated, then lifted the edge of her blanket. Come here. We'll both freeze separately. For a moment he didn't move. Then, with deliberate care, he crossed to the bed and settled beside her, maintaining a respectful distance even as they shared warmth. This isn't what I planned, he said quietly in the darkness. Nor I, she admitted. But I trust you, Adam. His hand found hers beneath the blankets, fingers intertwining. That means more than you know. They lay together, not speaking but drawing comfort from each other's presence, as the storm raged outside. Some time before dawn, Abigail shifted closer, her head coming to rest naturally against his shoulder. His arm curved around her, protective and gentle, and in that moment she knew with absolute certainty that Frederick Hammond had been a necessary detour on the path to where she truly belonged. Morning brought clearing skies and the inevitable return to propriety. Adam departed with promises to check on her later, leaving Abigail to reflect on how completely her feelings had transformed over the past months. What had begun as cautious friendship had deepened into something far more profound, something she was finally ready to acknowledge, not just to herself, but to him. That evening, when he returned with additional supplies, she met him at the door with newfound resolve. I need to tell you something, she said, gesturing him inside. Adam set down the provisions, his expression attentive. I'm listening. Abigail took a steadying breath. When I came to Sweetwater Creek, I was running not just from Frederick's betrayal, but from the possibility of ever being hurt that way again. I believed the safest path was to close myself off, to focus solely on teaching and forget that other dreams had ever existed. He remained silent, giving her space to continue. But you. She smiled, emotion making her voice unsteady. You didn't allow me that comfortable retreat. You showed me, day by day, what real care looks like. What integrity means. How a man of true worth conducts himself. She moved closer, taking his hands in hers. I told you I'd been hurt before, and you promised to be different. You have been, Adam. In every way that matters. His fingers tightened around hers. What are you saying, Abigail? I'm saying that I love you. The words, so long held back, finally emerged with stunning simplicity. I love your strength and your gentleness. Your patience and your determination. I love how you treat your son, your ranch hands, this community. And I love how you've treated me with respect for my past pain but refusal to let it dictate my future. Adam's expression transformed, joy breaking across his features like sunrise over the mountains. "I've loved you since that first day you cleaned the cut on my forehead during the flood," he admitted. "But I was prepared to wait as long as necessary for you to be ready. I'm ready now," she whispered as he drew her into his arms. His kiss held all the tenderness of their first embrace, but with a new certainty, a promise of tomorrows stretching endlessly before them. By February, their engagement was announced, to the surprise of absolutely no one in Sweetwater Creek. James received the news with transparent delight, having long since adopted Abigail as an essential part of their family. "Does this mean you'll live at the ranch now?" he asked over dinner. "And will you still be the teacher?" "Yes to both," Abigail replied, smiling at Adam across the table. "At least until the school board finds a replacement." Spring arrived, melting winter's harsh edges and bringing new life to the landscape. Wedding preparations proceeded alongside ranch work and school responsibilities. Abigail found herself welcomed into the rhythms of both the community and the Blackwood Ranch with an ease that sometimes left her breathless with gratitude. On a mild April evening, as they sat together on the ranch house porch watching the sunset paint the distant mountains, Adam took her hand. "I've been thinking," he began, "about what you said when you first arrived about wanting a change." She smiled at the memory. "I was being evasive. Perhaps. But you found your change nonetheless." His thumb traced gentle patterns on her palm. "Are you content with how things have turned out?" Abigail considered the question seriously. "Content seems inadequate," she finally replied. "I came here wounded, Adam, looking for a place to hide. Instead, I found a place to heal. A place to grow. A place where the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best." He raised her hand to his lips. "Then I'm glad Frederick Hammond was a fool." She laughed. "As am I, strange as that sounds." Their wedding took place in May, with wildflowers carpeting the hills and new green painting the valley. The entire town gathered to celebrate as Abigail and Adam exchanged vows beneath an arch of spring blossoms outside the ranch house. "I promise to cherish you all the days of my life," Adam vowed, his voice steady and sure. "To be faithful in word and deed. To build our future together with honesty, respect, and unwavering love." Abigail, radiant in a simple white dress adorned with lace, responded with equal conviction. "I promise to trust in the love we've found together. To face whatever comes with courage and faith. To remember always that some journeys, no matter how difficult, lead exactly where we're meant to be." As Reverend Miller pronounced them husband and wife, Abigail looked into Adam's eyes and saw the future unfolding not perfect or without challenges, but grounded in something true and lasting. When he kissed her before their friends and neighbors, she felt the final pieces of her heart click into place. The celebration continued well into the evening, with dancing, feasting, and heartfelt toasts. As twilight deepened into night, Adam led his bride away from the festivities toward the main house, now their shared home. Inside, he swept her into his arms. "Welcome home, Mrs. Blackwood." The name sent a thrill through her. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." His eyes held promises that made her heart race. "Abigail Blackwood. Teacher, rancher's wife, and the woman who taught me that life could begin again when I least expected it." "We taught each other," she corrected softly, reaching up to trace the beloved contours of his face. "And we have a lifetime for more lessons." His smile, the special one reserved only for her, warmed her from within. "I look forward to every single one." Their coming together that night was both culmination and beginning, tender yet passionate, the natural extension of the trust and love that had grown between them over the months. In Adam's arms, Abigail found the final healing of old wounds and the joyful certainty that she had indeed found where she belonged. Life as Mrs. Blackwood brought new challenges and unexpected joys. Abigail continued teaching until the school board hired a replacement the following autumn, then turned her attention to helping Adam manage the ranch's accounts and correspondence. Her Eastern education proved valuable as the operation expanded, her careful record-keeping and business acumen complementing Adam's practical knowledge of cattle and land. James, now 16, blossomed with Abigail's influence, developing confidence in his academic abilities alongside his ranch skills. Their relationship deepened into genuine maternal affection on her part and respectful devotion on his. One evening a year after their wedding, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, a ritual they maintained regardless of how busy ranch life became, Abigail took Adam's hand and placed it gently on her still flat stomach. His eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Are you certain?" She nodded, joy making her voice tremble slightly. "Dr. Winters confirmed it yesterday. We'll welcome anew Blackwood in early December." Adam gathered her close, his embrace gentle yet fierce. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "For this. For everything." "I should be thanking you," she replied. "For being patient. For showing me what love truly means." He drew back enough to look into her eyes. "Remember what I promised that night on this very porch? That I would be different? I remember. I intend to keep that promise every day for the rest of our lives." As twilight deepened around them, Abigail nestled against her husband's solid strength, reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. Frederick Hammond's betrayal, once so devastating, now seemed like a necessary detour, the painful catalyst that had driven her west to find her true destiny. "What are you thinking?" Adam asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "That sometimes our greatest heartbreaks lead us exactly where we need to be," she replied. "If I hadn't been hurt before, I might never have come to Sweetwater Creek. Never have found you." His arms tightened around her. "Then I'm selfishly grateful for whatever brought you here, though I wish you'd been spared the pain." "The pain faded," she said simply. "The joy remained." Their daughter, Sarah Elizabeth Blackwood, arrived on a crisp December morning as dawn broke over the eastern mountains. With her father's storm-blue eyes and her mother's honey-gold hair, she embodied the perfect union of their separate paths converged into one. As Abigail held her newborn daughter while Adam sat beside them, his expression one of wonder and fierce protectiveness, she felt the completion of a circle. The wound that had driven her west had not only healed but transformed into something beautiful beyond imagining. "She's perfect," Adam whispered, gently tracing his daughter's tiny features. "She is," Abigail agreed. "And so is this our family, our life together." Adam's eyes, when they met hers, held all the love and certainty she'd once feared she would never find again. "You were worth waiting for," he said simply. "Worth every moment." In that perfect moment, surrounded by the family she'd found in this wild, beautiful territory, Abigail silently thanked whatever fate or providence had guided her to Sweetwater Creek and to the man who had shown her that while some promises might be broken, others, the ones that truly mattered, would be kept for a lifetime. Years passed, bringing changes to both the Blackwood Ranch and Sweetwater Creek itself. The railroad arrived, connecting the once isolated community to the wider world. James grew into a capable young man who eventually married the daughter of a neighboring rancher, building his own home on Blackwood land. Sarah Elizabeth was joined by two brothers, Daniel Adam and Matthew William, completing their family and filling the ranch house with laughter, occasional chaos, and boundless love. Through it all, Abigail and Adam's partnership deepened. They weathered drought years and cattle market crashes, celebrated bumper harvests and family milestones. They supported each other through inevitable sorrows: the death of Adam's father, the loss of a prize herd to disease, the painful year when Abigail miscarried their fourth child. On their 20th anniversary, Adam surprised Abigail with a small wooden box containing a gold locket. Inside was a miniature painting of the schoolhouse where they had first met. "To remind you of beginnings," he said as he fastened it around her neck, "and how the most unexpected turns in life's trail can lead to the greatest destinations." Abigail, her beauty matured but undiminished by the years, touched the locket reverently. "I haven't needed reminding, but I'll treasure this always." As they stood together on the porch that evening, older, wiser, but still finding joy in shared sunsets, Adam drew her close. "Any regrets, Mrs. Blackwood? About the path that brought you here?" Abigail turned in his arms, looking up at the face she had loved through 2 decades of shared life. Gray now threaded his hair, and lines of experience marked his features, but his eyes still held the same steadfast devotion that had finally convinced her to trust again all those years ago. Not one, she replied with absolute certainty. Every step led me home. And as his lips met hers in a kiss that held the sweetness of their past and the promise of their future, Abigail silently blessed the day she had stepped off that stagecoach in Sweetwater Creek and the man who had taught her that sometimes letting someone be different was the bravest choice of all.